Next, we head into the Dismal Swamp.
And it was a pretty dismal cruise. No, it's actually kind of cool. And now we're in Norfolk. We got an update.
Staying on the path that I've chosen, straight up, come my way, and I'll see you at the top. 'Cause something's gonna happen in this story, and I can feel it coming, like the rising of the sun.
So when we last left you, we were at a sweet anchorage at the kind of the start of the Dismal Swamp, just outside of Elizabeth City, off of Goat Island. It was just amazing and tranquil. Great way to recharge after crossing the Albemarle Sound, which was a little dodgy.
Yeah, so check the past video for the Albemarle Sound crossing story. It was some of our most vigorous cruising to date, with more wine glasses broken in one crossing than we've ever had before. So check that past video. But now it's the exact opposite. Instead of high seas, this is super tranquil, still waters, because we're crossing the Dismal Swamp, probably some of the most protected waters you could possibly find, because you're up a loch and in a swamp.
Now, there are two ways to get through this area. The Dismal Swamp is kind of considered an alternative route to the ICW. The other route goes up through what's called the Great Loch.
It's the Virginia Cut and the Great Loch, and it comes up through, and that's the main commercial route. So the Dismal Swamp is actually often closed for extended periods of time because trees fall down and it gets blocked, but it is still maintained by the Corps of Engineers. And the Dismal Swamp Canal is actually the oldest operating navigable canal in North America. So,
and you have been looking forward to this like ever since we started researching doing the Great Loop. I think the Dismal Swamp, it was one of like the highlights of the adventure for you.
Well, Canada was, but yeah, the Dismal Swamp has definitely been way up there because it is beautiful and it is historic and it is old. So to get to the Dismal Swamp, you go up the Passaquatonic River, whatever the river is that goes by Elizabeth City with a lot of vowels in it. You go up the river, and then there is a lock that raises you up to this canal that was originally started. The project was begun under George Washington. He actually owned most of the land in the Dismal Swamp, him and some investors. They were doing it for lumbering, they were doing it for this and that, and eventually turned into a navigation canal that opened in 1805 and it was expanded several times over the years. But you go, and we got to do our first lock since basically right when we first bought our boat.
Yeah, because we got our boat down in west coast of Florida, and we spent some time in Fort Myers, and we did the locks there, the Franklin locks on the Okeechobee as practice, just to make sure we knew what the heck we were doing. We did like one other lock, like at Hilton Head. It was like getting in for a pump out.
Yeah, little marina lock, so tiny little, one boat at a time lock.
We really hadn't done like real locking in 7 years, so we rewatched our Ask Captain Chris DVD.
Yeah, we had to actually
find out how to do a DVD.
We had to find out, watch a DVD. It's like, lock training. We should make sure we're well versed on this. But as Captain Chris says, if you can dock, you can lock. And we actually did a pretty good job. I think we had actually zero issues going through.
Except for, because it's a fixed bollard. You use your own lines. We came in with our life jackets on. We had the lines ready. We had safety shears at the ready if we needed to cut lines. We followed all the advice that Captain Chris has. But what we weren't prepared for was the lockmaster told us we had the lines on backwards. So I thought we were going to be like securing to a cleat, and I was just going to be passing her
and they secure us and loot us down.
No, they just
want us to loop.
Just loop around. So you basically just keep the bit. You just give them the bitter end and loop around.
Bring it back around.
Yeah.
Took 1 second. The lockmaster was fabulous. Going through a lock is just a really pretty, tranquil experience, and see the water surging and churning, and then you just almost in slow motion, you just drop. But in this case, we were just raising.
Yeah, we were raising that one.
Yes, we were raising. We raised about 8 to 9 feet and got into this level of the Dismal Swamp Canal, which is like this bone straight, just arrow straight cut through the Dismal Swamp that was named that way back in the colonial times.
Dismal meant swamp, so
so
it's swamp.
Yes, and George Washington considered it a beautiful, tranquil place, and other people thought it was dismal and icky. But anyway, it was actually logged and harvested, and since the 70s, I think it's been actually protected area, and state park there and the National Wildlife Refuge and everything. So there's not a lot of development, although there is Highway 17 in earshot off to the side.
Most of it. So you're
Or
hearing
part of it.
So you're hearing highway noise. So it doesn't quite have that tranquil in
Part of it
nature,
does.
tranquil feel. For a lot of it, actually, it was there. And the other thing you have to watch out for is because of all these trees, there's a lot of debris in the water, and particularly logs. And the lock master told us that the winds have been pushing them closer down to the lock. So you have to be really on alert. So you go really slow because you can see the ones floating. And so one of us would stand on the bow looking for logs and pointing them out so we could steer around them.
In
But
the
you
rain.
you cannot see the ones underneath that are submerged.
Yes, and there's a lot of submerged floating logs, so you have to be ready to pop into neutral at a moment's notice, and you cruise basically at idle speed. So we average like 3.5, 4 knots.
3.8.
Yeah, 3.8 knots, puttering through this very narrow channel. And, there's fortunately very few oncoming boats, because when you have an oncoming boat, you basically got to tuck into the trees, and you're dodging overhanging trees, which is fun. It is beautiful. It is fun. It is a different kind of cruising, and just like such a narrow thing, and it's very protected from the wind and the weather and everything else.
And that
as
was
well.
an advantage because there was a tropical system. It never got named that was forming off of the Carolinas, and it wasn't impacting directly the area we were in. We were getting a lot of rain, some
bands of
increased
rain.
winds, and things like that. So we're in a very protected area.
That unnamed storm did horrific damage to Carolina Beach, where we had been just a few weeks prior. So it's these unnamed storms can still be significant. But yeah, so we went into the Dismal Swamp and just had a 5 miles past the lock to the Dismal Swamp Visitor Center. This is still in North Carolina, so we haven't quite got to the Virginia border yet. And this visitor center is the only combo visitor center. Maybe there's another one up along the Erie Canal, but we've been told it was the only combo visitor center.
At the visitor center, said it is the only one that is a combo car
Rest area for cars and boats.
And we had been there before in our bus. We stopped there on our trip down the coast when we were boat shopping back in 2016. And we
walked the dock. And
it's like, hey, that'll be us one day, because doing the Dismal Swamp has been on the bucket list. But cars and RVs are not allowed to overnight, but boats are
welcome.
for free.
And for free. And they even give you a sticker and a little welcome gift and all this stuff. And they even have water for the boaters and everything. So it was a very welcoming place. And you're right there at this nice visitor center with some exhibits. And then you go across a little tiny little drawbridge that goes across the canal to the Dismal Swamp State Park Visitor Center, which is a big museum, and then they've got 20-something miles of trails. We hiked one of the smaller ones on a boardwalk there and enjoyed the state park there. You have to be back from the state park by 5:30 p.m. because they raised the drawbridge because they don't want to block the canal, just in case a boat happens to come by.
Right, but the trails over there are muddy, or they're dirt, and it was because it was raining. We did not go do those. But there is on the visitor center side, there is about a 3 mile, just shy of 3 mile, paved trail out and back that you can do. Great for biking, great for hiking. We did it for running
because we're training for a marathon, and
we are.
Had to. Yes, this is what we had to get in a half marathon's worth of distance. So that's that particular Sunday. So we
basically ran out and back, out back, and out back a little bit more.
Yes. So very long running day after that long slow cruising day through into the Dismal Swamp. And then because the weather was coming through and the wind and weather and like that, we decided to actually stay a second night at that visitor center because there's not a lot of other places to stop as you cross this Dismal Swamp.
And it was very low traffic. We
had the dock to ourselves the second night.
Yeah, there was one other boat that we saw the entire time on the Dismal. There's no one coming in from the north because the Albemarle was not crossable at this point, so no one is making the transit north.
And the southern migration really hasn't started yet.
Yeah, so we love being in the off season. It's great.
So next day on the Dismal Swamp, we after 2 nights at the visitor center, we decided to continue on, and again had on and off rain. That seems to be the theme here.
Yes, but the steady downpour had quit. It was just drizzled.
We skipped for that. And again, another beautiful day cruising through the swamp with the tall trees towering over you. In the second part, once you cross into Virginia, it opens up so the highway is no longer near you. It's just actually a beautiful bike path that someday would be fun to explore along the Dismal Swamp there. And that really is silent and tranquil. And we saw all sorts of birds and everything else, and this beautiful black water that turns into a mirror surface. It looks like the trees are reflective right there because there's no wind reaching the water. It's just beautiful cruise up to the next lock. And that's really,
well, first there's a bridge. So each of these locks, there's a bridge at the end of it, and the lock master is in charge of opening the bridge for you.
Yes, and the lock's only open 4 times a day, and the bridge is only open 4 times a day. So you got to time things. You actually got to call the lock master to let them know you're coming, and
especially when you're off season, when you might be the only one for a week that's going through these
not
things.
quite a week, but yeah,
almost. So there's a wall you can tie up to just before the bridge. So we did that until the lock master could officially open for us. Apparently, you can get ashore there normally to a grocery store.
Yes.
It is now all under construction. The
they're
bridge is
building a new bridge.
so yeah, one that doesn't have to be open. And so that area right there by the wall is now a construction prep zone. And apparently there is still a way you can meander and get ashore. We did not try because we didn't have enough time. We only had like 20 minutes before the opening.
Yeah, went through the bridge, and then there's the Elizabeth docks at the just before you go into the other lock. It's a longer wooden dock wall with this one actually has 4 power outlets, 50 and 30, 250s and 230 amp power outlets. So they provide free power. We didn't need it because the temperatures were cool and great. But if you're transiting in the summer, that is a great place to go and keep your air conditioning running.
There's a little park there to wander around, and normally you could walk across the bridge there, but the pedestrian lane is currently shut down. So if you're planning to do the Dismal Swamp this transit season, just be prepared. All the stories of being able to provision at Food Lion or get to the restaurants there, not as easy as it used to be.
The traffic is crazy, and the bridge basically has no shoulder anymore because of the construction. So don't count on getting across there. But it was still a nice tranquil night. Got some
we did some walking and stuff like that, and then we had coordinated with the lock master to do the first lock opening in the morning, which was 8:30.
Yep.
So we got up, went through the lock.
This time go down, and we're back into tidal waters and out on basically it dumps out a deep creek, and that gets you into the Elizabeth River very quickly. So we're going from this place with only small boats and tiny narrow channels and completely remote feeling to being dumped into the busiest harbor one of the busiest harbors on the world.
It's like shipbuilding everywhere. You got aircraft carriers and destroyers and battleships
and then train bridges that are down because there's so much train traffic that you got to wait for the train bridges so it's like a world shift coming out into the Elizabeth River, and you got industry and urban areas, and suddenly you are in Norfolk. And again, we arrived in the rain.
So we made a reservation at Waterside Marina, right?
Right, floating behind us. Yeah, there it is.
For 5 nights. They did not do a weekly rate during their season. They consider this still their season, even though it's technically kind of shoulder season, and the marina was almost completely empty the entire time we were there.
We heard from people that said, this time last year it was full. This year there was like 3 boats at the marina. So it's
$2 per foot per day. So we just did 5 nights and decided to make it a splurge and just focus on exploring Norfolk. We had a couple work days to fit in there, but
it was totally jam-packed time. Oh my God, we had so much stuff that we ended up doing in Norfolk.
First night we found out that the nearby Wells Theater had a showing of Arsenic and Old Lace, so we booked a box seat, had a great night out at the theater.
And, oh my God, the acting. This play was hilarious, and the character acting was so over the top, and the box seat experience was so cool to be behind this big drape.
Super fun.
Yes.
Thursday was a full work day, so we didn't really get out and do too much that day. Friday, was that the day we just wandered by foot? We went over to the Chrysler Art Museum, which was amazing. It's free to go in. They have the largest blown glass display there that is just mesmerizing. And then they are opening up a glass blowing
stadium kind of.
Yeah, it's a art center where they're doing classes and demonstrations, and so we got to go to a demo there. That was super cool.
And they actually have it set up with like stadium seating and areas where you can watch the demonstrations as these artists do incredible things with glass, and right in front of you and explaining what they're doing, and that blew my mind. The Chrysler Museum as a whole was like, I'm not usually a huge art museum person. I could have gone back to this place.
Yeah, we should. We kept intending to go back.
So cool. The Chrysler Museum, amazing.
So Saturday we explored by bicycle. So we got the bikes out on the ground, went over to the Hermitage where there was a art festival going on. So we got to go view a lot of local arts. I actually bought this pendant
necklace,
there.
yes, from made by local artists. This festival is 90 artists, all handmade crafts. So it's a lot of really cool stuff there. And the Hermitage is a neat museum. But getting there was a challenge. We thought we had to follow the bike trail and
The
everything.
Elizabeth River Trail, right?
Now
ERT.
I know why Norfolk, everything there is that the baseball team is called the Tides, the public light rail system is the Tides, ride the tide, because the GPS apps need to be tide aware. We were here at a supermoon, full moon, and the tides, the high tides, would flood random streets throughout town, and it'd be just like, oh, you can't go here.
And there's no way we're taking our brand new electric bikes through salt water.
foot deep salt water. And so, like, we actually had to play a game of, like, walking, carrying our bikes, and go through yards and this and that, and, like, on sidewalks.
Route different ways.
Oh, no, gotta go this way, gotta go that way, to get from one end of town to the other. But in general, Norfolk was an incredibly great bike town, and it was also a great running town. They've got the Elizabeth River Trail, which is 10.5 miles along the waterfront, goes right past the waterside marina. And on our first run, when we got there on Wednesday, Cherie noticed a sign for Elizabeth River 10K 45th annual. And so we were like, ooh, Google that, what's up? And
that was on Sunday. So we signed up and we ran a 10K because, we're in marathon training. And
it's fun to have race energy.
Yeah. So our training run that day was supposed to be 4 miles. So 10K, that's just a little bit more. And we both turned in personal bests, which was awesome.
The race energy and being in that crowd of, I think it was probably about 850 runners or 900 runners. And it was a fun race. And the tide was fortunately down.
Yes.
So
incredibly well run. So loved it. It was just a great experience.
Yeah, and
we had a bike 4 miles to get to the start line.
We had to get up before dawn, ride our bikes to the start line. And we got a lot of biking in, a lot of running in, a lot of touristy stuff.
We also took the naval tour, boat tour off the, what do they call it, the American Rover, I think?
Yeah, the Victory Rover is the one that does the naval base tour, because the Norfolk in the Hampton Roads area is the largest naval base in the world, and this is where basically the Atlantic Fleet is headquartered. This is where all the aircraft carriers and a lot of submarines and so many other ships are built. And the tour takes you up right through the naval base on the water side, outside the security perimeter, and they talk about all the different ships that are in port, and then also all the history of this area. So that was actually a really fun, fascinating tour to see this from water, and not while also having to drive ourselves. So we're going to soon be going back out that way because, so after our 5 days in Norfolk, we just...
Yeah, we went across the river. We're in Portsmouth.
A whole half mile.
Yeah, and at the Hospital Point Anchorage, we just needed a down day after all of that jam-packedness, and just been here overnight. And we're about to start an adventure. We're intending to go up the James River to Richmond.
Yeah, so we're waiting for confirmation from the marina all the way up the river in Richmond. It's basically 90 miles from here, 90 nautical miles of river cruising up a very long, this is a very rarely done detour from the Great Loop, but Richmond seems like a super cool city to explore by water. And we're looking forward to that cruise and getting there to check all that out. So that's what we've been up to. It's been, the Dismal Swamp was great. Norfolk really exceeded expectations, particularly if you get away from the waterside district. The waterside development is kind of on a downswing. A lot of the restaurants are under renovation. A lot of everything right there at waterside felt low energy, but once you get into the town, there's a lot of really cool stuff going on.
Yeah, it's cool little, like the Ghent district was great.
Yeah, get out on the bike and explore. There's a lot of cool stuff in Norfolk. And we enjoyed it. We definitely look forward to coming back. This is kind of the crossroads of East Coast boating, so certainly. Yeah, so we'll be storing our boat here in the area. Yeah. We're still figuring out details on that, and then that means that we'll be here in this general area through springtime.
Yeah, and back in springtime. So.
Yeah, after we finish this season. But this season's not over yet. We're going to go up the river and see if we can get to Richmond. So stay tuned for that, and that's our next adventure.
See you down the river. We create these videos just for fun, and we love having you along for the ride. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, or if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. See you next time.